In my video about the live-action Ghost in the Shell, I stated that Ghost in the Shell 2 Innocence, or simply Innocence as it's called in Japan, is my favorite thing in the Ghost in the Shell franchise. I made that video back in 2018 and I still stand by that statement. Other things in the franchise are quite good. I enjoyed the original manga, and even 1.5 human error processor. Man-machine interface, however, is an unreadable piece of shit. I have never finished it. I admit that I love the 1995 film and even the first season of Standalone Complex more than the manga. They just held my attention better, and I revisit those all the time. The second season of Standalone Complex and Solid State Society, I just couldn't be bothered to watch again. And as for the live-action film, well, that wasn't great. The link to that video is in the description below if you want to know more. I love the original film to death, but Ghost in the Shell 2 Innocence is the entry that I revisit the most of all the franchise. It is also among writer-director Mamoru Oshii's greatest works. This is one of those times where writing a screenplay by himself yielded a great result. That's because I think he works best when he's collaborating closely with others, such as Kazunori Ito, who wrote the script for the first Ghost in the Shell film, or working within the boundaries of established works. Urusei Yatsuda Beautiful Dreamer is another good example of this. And even Jinro, which he didn't direct, was excellent. He even made adjustments to that one to satisfy the demands of director Hiroyuki Okiura. Ghost in the Shell 2 was animated at Production IG. The film was produced by Mitsuhisa Ishikawa, one of the founders of Production IG, and Toshio Suzuki, who is Hayao Miyazaki's longtime producer and co-founder of Studio Ghibli. Character designs were done by Hiroyuki Okiura, mechanical designs by Atsushi Takeuchi, and the music, of course, was composed by Kenji Kawai. The film is a non-canon sequel of sorts to the first film, in that this one is pretty much Oshii's creation and is loosely based on the manga chapter Robot Rondo. Right out of the gate with the second film, you can tell that in terms of aesthetics, this is quite different from the original film, which featured a much cooler color palette. This is because Oshii didn't want to repeat himself too much, and I guess that included the look. He would make that Ghost in the Shell 2.0 version to, if I recall correctly, coincide with the release of Skycrawlers. That does some updates to the look to fit in better with Innocence. Looking back on that, I felt that was a mistake. It even disrupted the editing rhythms of the original version. That always bothered me.
Give me the wheel. Ishikawa, go check out the trash collector's homes. Bato, cut the truck off at its next stopping point. Give me the wheel. Ishikawa, go check out the trash collector's homes. Bato, cut the truck off at its next stopping point. Togaza, if you're still alive, get off your ass and arrest those garbage men.
Affirmative.
Yes, sirree. The excitement never stops.
Togaza, if you're still alive, get off your ass and arrest those garbage men.
Affirmative.
Yes, sirree. The excitement never stops.
Well, Aramaki, this is quite a surprise. Well, Aramaki, this is quite a surprise.
It never needed an update. Thankfully, the original version has always been available. Oh, and on another tangent, I never liked the music they used at the end credits of the English dub in the original film. It's bland. But on the Japanese audio track, it has Kenji Kawai's score. See? Much better. The film really begins with Section 9 Officer Bato being called to the scene of a homicide.
The perp fled and is now holed up in the second crime scene, an unmarked alleyway where it's killed 2 officers.
The perpetrator is a gynoid, Type 2052 Hadali, a popular model sold by the company Locus Solus.
Please help us. Please help us.
In Aramaki's office, Bato and Togaza are informed that there have been 8 homicides committed by the gynoids, but Bato wonders why Section 9 is getting involved. There are 2 reasons. First, none of the victims' next of kin are going to be filing charges and have instead settled out of court.
Second, there was a politician among the group of victims who were killed, as well as a public security official who'd recently retired. It's possible that this was a terrorist act.
It's been about 3 years since the Major disappeared, and even Bato wonders where or what she is exactly.
The only things she really owned were her brain and her ghost. Of course, she herself wasn't too sure that she had even those.
I hear that she's still reported as missing.
The only thing the top brass is determined to recover is those memories. It's of no consequence to them whether she's alive or dead.
They get to local police headquarters, but they are not too pleased to see them butting into their jurisdiction. They don't seem to be happy to see Togusa, who was once a regular cop before Major Kusanagi transferred him to Section 9.
You know, there's an old saying that goes, not even crows will peck at a persimmon that's still green. But you can always count on the bastards to start circling overhead when it's right.
One thing you'll notice in this film is that Mamoru Oshii loves to throw quotes around. He does that in all of his work. I wasn't able to find an exact reason for this, but it was apparently something he picked up from Jean-Luc Godard. Yeah, he's more of a fan of that guy's work than I'll ever be. Sometimes the quotes relate to the story, and sometimes it's just something to establish rapport between characters.
It's like I was looking at the old me from the past.
You mustn't find fault with the mirror when it's your own face that's distorted.
The mirror does not reflect the truth. It only obscures it.
The last thing I want to see in the mirror is your ugly reflection.
He even did this in the Skycrawlers, when Yuichi Kanami and Suito Kusanagi meet for the first time.
We were expecting you this afternoon.
The glare of the morning sun was too oppressive.
Camus?
They go meet the forensics tech, Haraway, and on top of her telling them her various philosophies that disturb Togusa,
humans and robots are different, but that sort of faith is nothing more than the recognition that humans aren't robots, which is on the same level as saying that white is not black. Children have always deviated from the human norm. That is, if we define a human as something that has a fixed identity and behaves in accordance with its own free will. Even though they physically resemble humans, they differ from them drastically, mentally and emotionally. The dolls that little girls play with when they pretend to be mommy aren't merely surrogate babies or toys on which to practice mothering skills. Perhaps playing with dolls is very nearly the same thing as actually raising children. Raising a child is the quickest way and as close as you can get to realizing an age-old dream. Creating an artificial human being. That's how I see it.
Children aren't. They aren't dolls!
I do admit it is interesting seeing a robot give its own take on life, as it sees no distinction at all between robots and humans. Which makes me wonder if she was fully human at one point, but being heavily cyberized, it altered her views on human-robot relationships. Wait, where was I? Oh yeah, she tells him that the 2052 Hadley is a sexroid, and that is why the next of kin dropped the lawsuits. But she also shares an audio file that was contained in one of the damaged gynoids.
Well, she certainly wasn't your typical engineer, was she?
Probably fills out the comments sections on forums. I used to do that.
They are then called to the crime scene of a shipping inspector named Jacques Falconson, who was named after an 18th century inventor of automata in the shapes of humans and animals, where they meet Ishikawa.
You here alone? What's up?
Koga went back to base with the stiff after getting reacquainted with the tuna sandwich he ate for dinner.
That guy's pathetic.
The man worked for Locus Solus, and his murder looks like the work of a local Yakuza group called the Kojinkai. Since the Kojinkai's previous boss was killed by a Hadley unit, and now his deputy, Wakabayashi, after taking revenge on the shipping inspector, is now running the Kojinkai. I love the dark humor here. It's much more my speed, very much in contrast to the comparatively slapsticky tone of the manga.
The crime scene is of 22 minutes ago.
You made a rookie carry that thing back?
Hey, it's a learning experience.
Bato finds a holographic picture of a girl in a book about Hans Belmer, whose ball-jointed dolls were what inspired the design of the 2052 Hadley units. After the forensics guys do their thing, Bato is driven home by Ishikawa, who gives him advice on several things.
If you buy her dry food instead of that Inamaru brand wet dog food, it'll keep for 6 months.
I'm not feeding that garbage to her. Later.
Bato, you should take my advice. Switch to dry. Just from the standpoint of nutritional balance, it really is the smartest choice.
But Bato has a secret way of getting home in order to meet another staple of Oshii's work, the Basset Hound. I'm not sure what her name is in this movie, but in real life, at the time he was making this movie, Oshii had a Basset Hound named Gabriel. I recall him saying one time that the times where he feels the most human is when he's playing with his dog. The next day, Section 9 realizes that overall, this case is a job for the local cops, but Aramaki still wants Bato and Togusa to investigate. Aramaki wants Togusa to stick with Bato because, well, Aramaki's kind of worried about him.
It's imperative that partners monitor each other's mental states with regularity.
I'm not a cyborg, and I'm certainly no cyber physician.
Well, to understand Caesar, one not need be Caesar. When I look at Bato lately, I'm reminded of the Major and the way she was just before she vanished.
So what does Bato do first thing?
You planning to start a war or something?
One need not be a Yakuza when one goes to a Yakuza office, but you do need to pack some heat.
He goes to the Kojinkai office and shoots the place up, asking them what their connection is to Locus Solus. This sequence is really spectacular and at times quite funny.
But you said you would avoid shooting.
I did avoid shooting, as much as possible.
That son of a bitch, he hacked our eyes!
You can blame those cheap-ass cyber brains of yours.
He knew where the inspector was and told us, so we dealt with him. Look, I just got out of the joint after 3 years. I don't know shit about what the old boss was up to with the company.
But while that gets them nowhere, or so Togusa initially thinks, and after getting chewed out by Aramaki, Bato tells Togusa that the attack was bait.
If something fishy's going on between Locus, Solus, and them, then they're definitely going to bite at the bait. If the old man was really bent about what we did, then we'd be at Section 9 pulling desk duty right now. FS measures aren't going to get us anywhere.
He goes into a local store where he buys his dog's favorite brand of food when his cyberbrain gets hacked. And while thinking he's fighting off an assailant, he causes a ton of damage before Ishikawa gets to him. Ishikawa wasn't kidding when he told Bato to switch to dry food.
Allowing someone to hack into your cyberbrain that way isn't like you. When your daily routine becomes a pattern, that's when you walk into a trap.
You started off the festivities by shooting 5 rounds into your own arm. Then you came within a breath of blowing away the store owner.
But there aren't many people who would have the capability of hacking your cyberbrain. Other than the Major, that is.
Bato is repaired, and he is informed that whoever did that to him wasn't trying to eliminate him, but rather to create a scandal to discredit Section 9.
You burst into a main Yakuza office, gun blazing, and sent at least a dozen people to the hospital or the afterlife. And before the day was out, you shot up a convenience store. Anybody would assume that you're either nuts or you've got one serious cyber brain malfunction.
Bato and Togusa are to continue the investigation, and are to fly to the northern frontier and obtain physical evidence. But until they obtain it, they can get no official support. They pass over the Otorofu Special Economic Zone. It used to be the most information-intensive city in the Far East, but is now a haven for criminal activity due to its questionable sovereignty status. Now all that's left are these ugly towers.
There's a quote about how an object built by an individual is as much an expression of the builder's genetic phenotype as the builder himself.
Yeah, but that guy was talking about beaver dams and spider webs.
Give me coralline algae and the coral reefs they create anytime.
I always thought of architecture or even art was more of an extension of how people felt and what their priorities were at the time of making them. Clearly making beautiful architecture wasn't on the agenda when making all these towers. I don't know, that's just something that was always on my mind when I see this sequence.
If life's true nature is information that's passed down via genes, then society and civilization are nothing more than gigantic memory systems. That would make cities huge external memory devices.
How precious also are thy thoughts unto me, O God. How great is the sum of them. If I should count them, they are more in number than the sand.
That's Psalm 139 from the Book of David. The way it calls up quotes at the drop of a hat, maybe the phenotype of your external memory device has some of your philosophical leanings.
Yeah, like you're one to talk, Plato.
This parade sequence is simply spectacular. This was based on a festival that Oshii and company saw in Taiwan when I believe they were doing location scouting. Apart from the unbearable heat, they liked it. As I understand it, this sequence took about a year to make, and looking at the result, I believe it. Oshii knew when he storyboarded this that this would be tough, but he didn't realize how tough it was actually going to be. So tough that on the commentary track, he and animation director Toshihiko Nishibuko didn't really want to discuss it anymore. It was that much of a pain in the ass. Oshii stated that he wanted crowd movement, but not in the way that a Disney movie would do it. You know, where there's constant movement all the time. Not only did that make him queasy personally, but he said that the brain just can't really take in all that input, which is fine by me. It allows me to see the parade without getting too distracted. And it can't be ignored just how awesome Kenji Kawai's music is here. Like in the first film, he used Bulgarian folk harmony with Japanese lyrics, and brings to this film, like the first, an otherworldly feel. You can take an actual Bulgarian folk song and place it here, and it would work. Bato finds an old comrade or subordinate of his and asks him where he can find a man named Kim. After roughing him up, he gets his answers. They get to Kim's mansion, and the guy has quite the history.
His career was shot to hell for things like running black market arms deals while he was bouncing between special forces and cyber warfare units. And in the end, he wound up as another stereotypical hacker.
One of those colorful history types, huh?
They search the house, seeing all kinds of interesting things, but once again, what really gets my attention is Kenji Kawai's music. The organ that is playing in the background was recorded at a music studio. Then that was played and recorded inside a large open space in Tochigi Prefecture to get the right feel, to make it actually sound like it was playing in a massive house.
オルゴールのその置いてあるところが劇中ではすごい広いところなんですよね。で広いところが果たして電気的にやってうまくいくのかどうかっていうのがちょっと確証がなかったんですよ。で特に映画は 5.1 チャンネルですし、やっぱり本当に広いところで撮った方がいいんじゃないかなって思いまして。
They locate what appears to be Kim, but he's actually alive inside a doll, and this is where things get weird. Kim discusses how Locus Solus began to rapidly expand its business when they pretty much exclusively started producing gynoids. To keep the authorities from snooping around, and to hide their connections to politicians, bureaucrats, and organized crime, they set up shop at a large factory ship off the coast.
The dolls they make there are fine pieces of work, very sophisticated.
Sophisticated enough to commit murder and then kill themselves?
If that's true, it's awfully disturbing.
He then waxes on about how humans put into dolls a strange standard of perfection that humans ironically try to mimic or go beyond due to fear of being simply reduced to a collection of mechanical parts devoid of meaning and purpose.
I don't understand it when people try to mimic humans by breathing souls into dolls. The definition of a truly beautiful doll is a flesh and blood body devoid of a soul, a corpse standing on tiptoes.
While he's talking about all this, Kim is trapping Bato and Togasa in a virtual experience maze. It's also strange. We as humans are caught in a tough place in relation to dolls. We often make them with the most desirable looks and designs to the point where there are some out there that want to become them as much as possible through cosmetic surgeries and so forth.
Unlike robots intended for heavy labor and industrial use, pet androids and gynoids weren't designed with utilitarianism and pragmatism in mind. Why did we feel compelled to create them in man's image? An idealized image at that. For what reason or purpose does humanity go to such lengths to engender these likenesses of itself?
Most people, I think, on some level have a fear of dolls, in the sense where we somehow think they are watching us. Adults and children, intentionally or unintentionally, humanize them. Since they are designed after us, we can't help but escape the sense that, well, they could possibly be alive.
It's the uncertainty that perhaps something that appears to be alive actually isn't. On the other hand, it might be the uncertainty that perhaps something that doesn't appear to be alive actually is.
Do you know Descartes? He didn't distinguish between man and machine. He owned a doll that resembled his daughter Francine, who died at age 5. He gave it her name and he adored it.
The way they come across to us isn't their fault. As the title Innocence implies, dolls aren't really doing anything to us. But what we create and use them for can be seen, like in the creation of art and architecture, as a reflection of how humans are at the time of the creation. From the desire to create something beautiful with no ill intent, or to the depraved.
人間の歴史とか文化とか文明とかさ、結局ね、全て人形を作ることに象徴的に表現できるような気がするんだよね。人間は要するに自分を作ってきたんだってさ、自分のイメージを再生産してきたんだってさ、結果としてこういうろくでもない世の中になりましたっていうさ、惨憺たる歴史を築いてきちゃったってさ、その少しは綺麗なものも入ってるし、いいものもあるんだろうけどさ、僕どう考えてもね、大半はろくでもないもんだってさ。
Speaking of humanizing dolls, when Oshii was doing the sound mix at Skywalker Ranch, the guys working on the film found the burning of the dolls at the end of the parade sequence sad but beautiful. Oshii stated that in Japan, and I suppose by extension other parts of Asia, objects are burned all the time for spiritual appeasement. There's no tradition like that in the West. Oshii also suspected a deep-seated fear of cremation on the part of us Westerners as well. Fortunately, while Kim was trapping them in the maze, Major Kusanagi was leaving hints for Bato to pick up. First, she leaves the Latin word amet, which means truth. This word was inscribed in clay in a Grimm's fairy tale to bring a golem to life.
But if you erase the first 2 letters, AE, it becomes met, meaning death, and the creature turns back to lifeless clay. This was an omen warning me that there was no truth to be found here in the mansion.
And finally showing the password, telling him it's her.
In the left pocket of my jacket in the hallway are some car keys. Take the one you like. The door code is
2501? That can be our private password when we meet each other again.
Batou snaps Togusa out of the maze, and this is just too much for the poor guy.
We're back in the real world now, aren't we? Please just tell me we are.
But the one who is more surprised is Kim.
Are you telling me that someone breached the barrier I set up? Impossible! No one could pull that off!
I said I have a guardian angel. That was just an ordinary doll.
Batou informs Togusa that they will have to infiltrate Locus Solus itself to obtain the material evidence, because despite grabbing Kim, all they've got on him was violating the Cyberbrain Ethics Act and obstructing an investigation. But with Kim's cyberbrain linked to Locus Solus' security supervisor, they will use that to help them infiltrate the offshore facility.
Ages ago, there was a terrific expression. When right and wrong are in doubt, beat the drums and attack. When the talking goes nowhere, then it's time for violence.
Batou chooses to make his entry underwater using an escort to get him there.
I'm amazed you got the guts to dive with a body like that. So deep here that if you went down, even we couldn't retrieve you.
I used to know a cyborg who went scuba diving for fun.
Yeah?
I don't know what the hell she was thinking.
He breaks in and begins his assault, accompanied by Kenji Kawai's God tier score. Have I mentioned how much I love this score? Because I do. During Batou's infiltration, the security locate Togusa and send a virus. It fries Kim's brain and nearly gets Togusa. And then another virus program sends the newly completed Huddley units into a killing frenzy. This seems to baffle the security bots. I don't really know who or what uploaded it, but my guess is that Locus Solus did that not only to get rid of Batou, but also everyone else working there so there would be no evidence of an intruder. Ever. The manpower working there is replaceable after all. While fighting all the gynoids, Batou encounters the Major. Well, a part of her anyway, uploaded via satellite.
The combat control programs alone take up most of its free space, so this is the best I can do for speech and facial expression.
This presentation of the Major, where she is not physically present, was one of many of Mamoru Oshii's favorite storytelling ideas. When he was attached to do a Lupin III movie back in 1984, he had the idea of a film where there was no protagonist, and that Lupin would be absent from the proceedings. The idea of having a thief steal fiction and turn everything upside down to where nothing was certain was considered too complicated. So he left that project and took the concept of an important character absent from the action and used that in Patlabor the movie, which was perfect for the villain Eiichi Hoba, who is never seen or pictured, but his presence is everywhere, especially when the labors are going berserk. They get to a central terminal, and while Batou acts as a guard, the Major takes control of the ship. The whole ship, being evidence of Locus Solus' criminal activity, is now heading to a territory where the rule of law applies. They then discover the dark secret to the popularity of the gynoids, what makes them such good pleasure units. They were kidnapping kids using Kojinkai roots, brainwashing them, and then using ghost dubbing technology, dub the kids' consciousness into the gynoids.
The technology was able to produce multiple degraded copies in animal tests, but it was banned when they learned that it destroyed the brain of the original.
Jacques Falkenson figured out what was going on and decided to help the kids by tweaking the gynoids' ethics codes, making them go berserk. When Locus Solus found out about it, he was given to the Yakuza as their boss's killer. As I understand it, the ghost dubbing process makes a kind of copy of the original host's consciousness and plants them into dolls. While not on the same level of intellect as the original host, it is enough for them to do the task that they were assigned to do. But there may be traces of some kind of original consciousness in them, not really understanding why it's created or what it's actually doing, or why they are being tweaked to kill people. So when Batou says this...
Didn't it ever occur to you that there would be victims? I'm not talking about the humans. I'm talking about the dolls that were given souls. Didn't you stop to think what would happen to them?
He is speaking as someone heavily cyberized, and in a moment of anger, feels for the dolls that did nothing wrong. One also can't help but sympathize with the girls in this one. They were being treated as dolls to make new dolls, and once their brains have deteriorated to uselessness, they will be tossed out and replaced like the old robots.
But I didn't want to be turned into a doll! That's all I cared about!
We are saddened by a bird's cry, but not a fish's blood. Blessed are those with voices. If those dolls had voices, I bet each and every one of them would have screamed, "I don't want to be a human."
Are you happy with being the way you are now, Major?
I haven't looked at things that way for a long time, but at least I can say that I'm at peace with myself now.
The Major says her goodbyes to Batou and says she will always be around. The film ends with Batou dropping Togusa off, I guess teasing further adventures? That will never happen because this movie bombed at the box office. Yeah, I'm not kidding, this movie actually did tank at the box office, which is a pity. It's also a pity that the sequel isn't as beloved or as widely seen as the first film. In fact, in many ways, it seems to have been quite forgotten. It's a damn good movie that is, as one of the animators put it,
今までの惜しい映画にあった要素が全て、やりすぎなぐらいにプラスされて映画の中に詰め込まれてるっていうことが言えますね。そのささやかな恋愛的要素、そしてなんだか大敗した世界観、暴力描写。
This was Oshii taking an existing material and making it his own, while not only making an intelligent, well-crafted film in its own right, but doesn't mock or completely toss out the source. Oshii's ideas and dialogue presented here can be quite dense, and can be overwhelming on a first viewing, but for me, it was a case where I got a pretty good idea of what it was all about, but still came back for another viewing to unpack it, and I found that rewarding. Regardless, I can see why this isn't everyone's cup of tea. From his use of imagery such as birds, museums, or other ruined buildings, military equipment and weapons, water, etc., put together with a deliberate, stoic visual and storytelling style that can come off as cold. Probably more so than the original. Actually, the original Ghost in the Shell was made in only 10 months. Money and time were so tight that when storyboarding it, Oshii had to make damn sure it was what he wanted or needed. Oshii clearly had more time and freedom to make the sequel, and he put into it all of his quirks. And that may get on the nerves of some viewers. I know it gets on the nerves of some fans of the manga. It didn't bother me in this film because he was working within established boundaries, and thus couldn't go completely off the deep end. Oh well, Ghost in the Shell 2 is incredible in my eyes. My favorite adaptation of Samashiro Masamune's manga, and while a very cerebral work, it is a visual feast for the eyes with some surprising moments of dry humor, and some heart. It outclasses so much of what passes for anime today. In fact, it even outclasses what passes for movies today in general. If you're an Oshii fan and still somehow haven't seen this, or if you're just somebody looking for something a bit different, dive right in.